Between insulting Tammy at her own wake, Chad Daybell can't even seem to keep his lies straight about what happened to her. And we're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. The sofa's back here. Roscoe, our little mascot, is doing his token behavior, which is giving himself a bath the second I press record. And my name's Paul, and don't worry, I won't be bathing today, but we will be talking about the Chad Daybell trial. And specifically what we're going to be talking about is some of the testimony about Tammy Daybell, specifically from her family members, and specifically about her wake, and some of the things that went on there with Chad Daybell's behavior. What I wanted to do is just take some video segments from that, use those as an overall representation of just like what really stuck out to me about it, and just talk about that, my thoughts on it, and that kind of thing. So that's the way the video will go. We'll watch video segments and we'll talk about them, and then at the end of it. Now, if you want to follow me and Mr. Roscoe.
Yes, Father. Tell them about Instagram, Father.
Well, good Lord, okay. We're on the Instagram. It's on the screen, just like he said. So give us a follow over there, and let's go ahead and get into that first clip.
Did the two of you have a conversation with Mr. Daybell?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury the nature of that conversation?
Yeah. So my dad asked him what had happened. That said that he was confused.
Judge, I'm going to object. There's levels of hearsay here.
Well, if they're, Mr. Exum, if they're soliciting comments of the defendant, would be an exception. If they're comments of the father, it would be hearsay. So I'm not sure where the witness is going with this. Maybe you can direct the witness to avoid that hearsay.
I will, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So ma'am, just in context of what Chad may have said in that conversation, can you explain to the jury what you first remember him saying about anything?
Yeah. He said that Tammy had been sick that day. He said that she had been vomiting and coughing. And then around 10 p.m., she had vomited again and then came to his office and said that she was feeling a little bit better. And he said that she was going to bed and that he stayed in his office working. And then around 1 a.m., he went upstairs and found Tammy on the floor. And he said that she had rolled out of the bed and was on the floor, and that he found her cold and already passed.
Okay, so a couple of things here. First of all, if you go back and think mentally, if you've been following the case along with me, think back to the 911 phone call where the son's on the phone, Chad's on the phone, the son's talking about, she's frozen, which you can imagine like what the body does at that point in death, post-mortem. So, here the story is, she was cold. But again, keep in mind this narrative. Now, this is his basically second cousin. I believe it's like her mom's cousins with him or something, or I'm sorry, with Tammy. He went up there 1 o'clock, that she was sick doing this. The coughing is pretty on standard, like he says it with everything. But then where her body was, what time she did this, how her body was found, all that, it changes. So let's listen to the next clip and how this begins to morph.
So that was a lot of information. Just for clarity, I'm going to ask some follow-up. So when you said he described this, was he talking about the night that she passed?
Yes.
Okay. I think you said that she came to him at 10 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
What time do you remember, if at all, that he said that Tammy went to bed that night?
He said Tammy went to bed around 10.
And what time was it that you said he finally went to bed himself?
Around 1 a.m.
And when was it that he said that he found Tammy on the floor, passed away?
Around 1 a.m.
So is there any question in your mind that that's precisely what he said?
No.
Okay, so according to this first thing here, basically you can surmise. She comes down, does the thing at 10 o'clock. He goes up there 1 o'clock. He finds her deceased, right? On the floor. Like this is, here we go. So keep that up here in your little Rolodex. Let's go to the next clip.
During that interaction with him, did you observe anything about his tone or demeanor?
Yes.
What did you notice?
I noticed that he seemed calmer than I would have expected. and that he would get emotional only when my dad would get emotional and then would stop, like once my dad stopped crying.
Why did that stand out to you?
It stood out to me because I would have expected someone who just lost their partner to be a little more distraught. And he seemed calmer than I would have expected him to be.
And in fact, are you married?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so remember the other day or the other video, like maybe 2 videos back that I did, talking about where he starts crying during the 911 phone call when I was just referencing, and Pryor basically like touches his shoulder and then he's like, so we've seen this behavior play out current times, right? So to hear someone who was this has just happened is fresh. And it's the same thing of, yeah, he's basically taking social cues, which the fact that he's able to take them at all on any level is surprising to me. Just seeing his demeanor. But he's taking social cues as to when to act distraught. And it's like, okay, well, we should stop crying now. Okay. Because here's what I would think. The whole thing about, he is calm and all that, I'm like, he probably just wanted to do damn cartwheels. You read in also that other video I'm referencing, the text messages between him and Lori talking about my family's in the way, this, that, and the other. Oh God, I gotta go be with the family. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. We know they viewed them as obstacles. We know they viewed their family members as just these, pawns in the way. So Lori's breathing down his neck about Tammy. Now she's gone. She's out of the way. Chad couldn't wait. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. They were married almost instantly after this, to the point that it's shocking. Now, also, keep in mind this, and think back to your own experiences of whether it's a loved one, a friend, whatever, but especially if it's a loved one, someone you're close to that has passed, and and when I say planned, it's not planned, but like, not like this, okay? Like this is like out of the blue, right? So someone that maybe it's cancer or they had heart disease or old age, where basically people kind of know what took place. Think of how that is at the wakes or the funerals, whatever your situation is. And I'm just referencing back certain specifics in my mind where it's like people are kind of like, they might already know is what I'm getting at, or they've heard or this or that. This scenario is it's out of the blue. All everybody knows is she was healthy. What? Tammy's dead? She what? So of course you're going to be more in a situation if you're someone like Chad or the kids of people being like, what happened? What happened? What happened? As opposed to say a normal situation where people kind of knew like she's been battling cancer or she's 98. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not much of a what happened kind of question, but this, everyone's going to be wondering whether they ask it or not. So this is where it gets caught up, in my opinion, because it's like he has to keep answering that question. And you would think, we're getting ready to get into it, he would have a story straight in his mind, but let's get to that part now.
Now, later that evening, you said, I think earlier, that you'd also went through the line with your mother.
Yes.
About how long after the time you went through with your dad did you also go through the line with your mother?
About 2 hours.
Could you please just explain to the jury your experience when you went through the line with your mother?
Yes. So they were talking and Chad was telling us what happened. And he said that she had been coughing that day. And that she'd been coughing pretty violently. So he was worried about her. Between 9 and 10, she came down to his office and said that she was going to rest and go to bed. He said that he was worried about her, so he went to bed at the same time. And then at around midnight, he woke up to her rolling out of bed and hitting the floor. He said that he went to check on her and had found that she had passed.
What was your immediate reaction when you heard that account of things?
I was confused at first.
Why?
Because it was inconsistent with what I had heard earlier that evening.
Did you say anything at that time?
No.
Did you ask Chad any questions about the explanations at that time?
No.
Why not?
I was confused and I also didn't feel comfortable. The conversation was being had between Chad and my parents.
Okay, So, you see me, I was like, just a little bit different. Okay, so here's the thing. We have a completely different story, but notice how it changes. And so this is just my theory here. This is just my opinion from the sofa. Again, if you're new here, I'm not some therapist. I'm not some police officer or anything credentialed or any of that kind of stuff, right? I don't claim to be. So these are just sofa opinions that I give. Okay, so when he's talking about, or she's talking about, Chad said, oh, I was worried about her, so I went up to be in bed with her, and I woke up, and she was doing this and that. She rolled out of the bed, and blah, 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 blah. Notice how he's trying to make it look like to certain people that he was concerned. And so he's like, yeah, well, he doesn't talk like that. Let me reel in my Chad voice here. He was like, yes, I was very concerned for her safety. So I went up to the bedroom with her and crawled into bed with her. I'm a good person. Those are things that good people do. That's exactly what he was trying to look like. You know what I mean? He didn't go up there. I mean, in my opinion, he is the one who offed her. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. And then she rolled out of bed, this, that, and the other. Okay, here's what I was getting at before we watched this segment. I'll probably say it, 100 times in this video. If you pulled something like this off, why in God's name wouldn't you have basically taken an index card before you did a public appearance and you wrote down, this is the story. This is the way the evidence should look to match this story. Bam, done. That is the story we tell. We tell it to everybody. We do not deviate from this. Now, at the end of the day, we might have caught him up on some things like that, but just the basic level of you don't change up major key components such as when I found the body, how I found the body, those last moments, this and the other. That is red flag material. So the fact that he's at her funeral, at her, this situation, changing the story up for various people, talking the way we're going to get into the way he talks about her there, is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing, okay? It's in the same category as we were going to carry out a hit, so we stopped at a Walmart and bought souvenirs, and then the stuff we needed to carry out the hit. And we don't know why we got caught. If you know the case I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Drop it in the comments. But it's to that level where I'm like, what? That was even an option for someone who decided to do this? I mean, literally cannot roll my eyes hard enough at it. Let's get to the next clip. And now in this next clip, we're going to hear from a different person, a different family member about her experience. And one thing I want to do, the first thing we're going to watch is, now this is Tammy's cousin here. I want to play a couple of things of her talking about memories with Tammy, because here's my thing, when we watch these cases and whatnot, and especially this one where, and I'm not trying to sit here and compare other cases of, oh, this victim deserved it. It's not that at all. But just this case hit so hard to home because it was like none of these people saw any of this plot coming. And I guess that's what's different, is there's such this vast plot against all these family members in this case. And they were just all sitting ducks. I mean, you are not expecting your mother, your father, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever, to come at you and take your life. You know what I mean? So that's what really hits home. But then when you hear these nuances on the stand of people who really truly love these people, the victims, it brings it all home. So let's listen to our cousin tell a couple of quick stories, about Tammy and her experience with her.
When I moved to Springville, we went to high school together. We were best friends, drove to school every day. She encouraged me to join band, even though I didn't play an instrument, to so we could be together and go on a trip to California with the band. And also she encouraged me to take some classes with her, so we'd have classes together too. She was the computer tech and I was teaching. I taught 5th grade for a year and then I taught 3rd grade, and she would come down and leave little notes. She would leave little notes for me with inside jokes. I still have one in my nightstand.
Okay. So, sorry. It's these little moments like this that really bring home the victims in these stories and whatnot. And it's so heartbreaking, because you see these family members or friends or people that truly love them, people that didn't, want to take part in their demise, right? Talking about these little nuances that make them human, that make them the person that they were. Now she'll go on to talk about we both like so-and-so, and so we would trade clips of him and, just what made Tammy a person. And then you look over to the defense table and there's Chud, the frog, the blob, whatever you want to call him, sitting over there, mustering up crocodile tears. It just cheapens the whole thing, and it's angering, right? So, there's that. Let's get into some of her testimony, and again, about this conflicting information and how Chad's behavior and whatnot.
She was right next to me with her hand on me. Yeah,
Did you see Chad in that viewing line?
I did.
Did you observe anything about his emotional state or demeanor that night?
When I was going through, he was just talking with people, and when someone would cry, he would cry, but he was mostly just visiting with whoever was coming up to him.
Did anything about the way he was acting strike you as unusual?
I felt like he should have been more sad, I guess.
Did you, at that point in time, did you engage him in any conversation?
Well, I had gone through the line really quick the first time, and then the second time, I went through and hugged her kids, and then walked past the casket, and then went and talked to Chad.
So, again, you're hearing this, the behavior's off, and I'm all for, this whole train of thought of look, we don't know how we'd act in a certain situation. We're all different. We all process trauma differently. I get that, right? But we've seen evidence of this ourselves. There's a difference between we process things differently and something being off. And especially when evidence begins to show that the person we're talking about possibly had a hand in taking the life, right? And so to me, this is very interesting of oh yeah, and again, key component. Multiple people noticing, well, yeah, he reacts when people react. He cries when people cry. Red flag, and he did it with Pryor. It was so obvious. Here's the thing, y'all. If we saw how obvious it was the other day, watching Pryor touch his shoulder, almost why aren't you crying? And then he was imagine what he was just out in the free world. That's him trying to, put on a show for us, and it's that cringy, okay? Let's go to the next clip.
Was Hannah with you when you went to talk to Chad?
Yeah, yes, she was.
Can you explain to the jury what was it that you and Chad talked about? What did Chad say?
I just went up to him and told him I was sorry for his loss. And we hugged. And I asked him what happened.
What did he say?
He said that Tammy wasn't feeling well, and she was coughing a lot, and she threw up. Well, he asked if she was okay. She threw up, and she came to tell him that she threw up and that she was going to bed. He asked her if she was okay, and she said yes. She was feeling better after she threw up, and then she went to bed. And then we both started crying, and then before I left him, he told me that Tammy loved you so much.
Did he say anything else or more specifically about how he'd found that Tammy had passed away that night?
Yeah, he said that he had, so she went to bed and he stayed up working. And then he went to bed later, I think he said Tammy went to bed around 10 o'clock and he went to bed later. And then he woke up in the morning because she rolled out of bed or fell out of bed. And that's what woke him up.
Okay, a couple of things with this. Number one, so her talking and saying, oh, we both started crying. She was the one who started crying first, and then he took her cue, right? Number two, again, another story. The variations of how this went down, I just think he was just talking to whoever, and whatever would come out of his mouth. Oh, yeah, well, I found her. Oh, no, she rolled out of bed. Oh, no, she did this. What is consistent is the 10 o'clock thing and lots of coughing. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Obviously, we know something nefarious. In my opinion, something very nefarious went down that I personally believe him and possibly Alex, or the both of them, had a hand in. So, I believe that she very well probably went to bed at 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that seems to be consistent, right? So whatever happened after that is up for grabs, okay? But this whole thing, oh, she loved you so much and all this and the other, I can just hear him up there, just laying it on thick. And I'm sure she did obviously love her. I'm not trying to say that. But Chad doing that is just, it's a form of manipulation is what I'm getting at.
Anything else that you can remember in that conversation that he described about how he found Tammy?
She was kind of half on and half off the bed.
The next day, did you have the opportunity to attend Tammy's funeral service?
Yes, I did.
Was that held at the same place?
Yes, yeah, at the church.
When you attended the service, did you happen to hear Chad speak?
I did.
Was there anything about his talk or speak at the funeral service that caused you concern or stuck out to you?
Yeah, there was a couple things that he said that I just thought weren't very nice.
What were those things?
He said that the first thing he said was that she wasn't easy to live with. He said that she was lazy. He said that she had depression, which she did, but to say it out in front of the whole congregation, I thought was, I guess, embarrassing for her. I don't know.
So here's what I'm talking about. You can almost start to piece together the mental conversations he was having about himself with Tammy versus Lori. Oh, she's lazy. Oh, she's depressed. Lori's like a go-getter. Look at her. She's been with like 4 husbands. She's really out there making it happen. She does her little Pilates or whatever, Lori did. This is like the comparison is what I'm getting at. So, and then for him to sit there, because again, remember, probably what he's going through at this is suppressed excitement. Even if he had, there's going to probably be some level of sadness of like, oh, she's gone, but not in the same way as a person who truly lost somebody and didn't like want them gone and partake in getting rid of them. He's going to also, he's just excited. He gets Lori now. So there's a level of excitement, and he probably just can't wait to do cartwheels to Lori. And it's coming out in these little sneaking things of like, oh, she was lazy. Oh, she was this. Oh, she was that, where it's like other people aren't vibing what he is. It's like, dude, time and place, right? Like, seriously, you're going to criticize her in this situation, and after she's dead? What? Like, that makes it doesn't even cross your mind that that's not appropriate. So again, this is where the truth leaks out, if you will.
So why were those things of concern to you?
I just didn't think they were very nice.
Was there anything about his demeanor at the funeral service before, during, or after speaking that you noticed?
I noticed after Emma told us a story about Tammy wanting more pets and that she would just kind of sneak them in, and I looked over at him and he kind of looked like a little concerned, and then he was laughing about it. And then,
When you say him, did you mean Chad?
yes, that's correct. And
Okay.
then Garth told a story about Tammy playing video games, and he would be her lookout for when Chad got home. And same thing, he looked kind of like concerned, and then he started laughing. But it was like a split second, because I looked over at him to see if that was upset him, because I would, I guess, be upset too, but he just laughed it off too.
So this whole thing about, the behaviors, and we'll watch another clip about it too. Some of that, and I try and play both sides of the fence. Like, how there's certain situations in relationships where, and this is a great example, where one person's like, I'll pick up any dog I see on the side of the road. I understand that can be normal, that can be whatever. However, I also think that in this particular situation, Chad ruled with a certain vibe in his house. And I would also imagine that when Lori came around, there was a little bit of a different thing. Like he, and I don't know how you say it, not succumbed, but like gave way to her more than he would Tammy. Let Lori take a little bit more of a lead, that type thing. Whereas with Tammy, it sounds like, Chad was going to make the rules up kind of a thing. More of like a very traditional, I'm the man of the house kind of scenario. And with Lori, maybe he was more like, you tell me what to do, babe. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of energy, as icky as it is. Ugh. Let's go to the next clip.
Why did those things that Emma and Seth had shared, why were they of concern to you?
So it was Emma and Garth. I just felt like they had to hide what they were doing. Tammy had to hide what she was doing from Chad.
What do you mean by that?
Like, to be careful to not get in trouble, I guess.
In trouble with who?
Chad.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's, trying to decipher, is this like the normal, say the father in the house of like, oh, don't tell dad, oh, we're trying to get a new puppy, or I left the lights on all day, or I'm going to touch the AC control, typical dad stuff, you know what I mean? Like, how much of that is that, and how much of it is, because some of it sounds like, oh, we had to hide this and do that. Again, you see how passive and like, bleh, Chad is. So I'm trying to even imagine him being like the head of a house. I mean, I don't know if I would trust him to make a decision. You know what I mean? Like based in like sound, like what it should be in. So I find that part interesting, but let's get to these last clips.
Were there occasion when Chad and Tammy lived in Springville that you would go over to visit Tammy at her house?
Yes.
When you would go visit her, was there anything that you would notice in those interactions that caused you any concern about Chad?
Judge, could I have some foundation as to time, date, year?
Mr. Wexham.
Sure. With respect to that question, can you think of a time that you went to Tammy's house, and the best you can recall, let's tell the court and the jury, what year did this happen?
So it was the same years that we lived in Springville. 1995 to till the time she moved to Idaho.
So is it fair to say that you would visit her often at their home?
Yeah, at least once a month, if not more.
Were there any particular visits that you had that stand out, that you ever had concerns with Chad's behavior? And I'm asking you to try to recall when these were, if you can.
I don't know specific dates, but when I would go visit, normally I just visit when Chad wasn't there, and I would stop by for a quick visit, and then it would end up being hours, and we'd visit about our kids and old memories and whatever. And eventually Chad would get home. He would come in and sit next to her and put his hand on her knee and visit. But I always kind of got a feeling that I needed to go home, like at that time.
Did he ever ask you to leave, or
No.
that was just a feeling?
Just a feeling.
Imagine the ominous vibe that came into the house with him. He heard her. We're hanging out for hours, talking about kids, talking about this, talking about that. And then Chad walks in. I literally, what she was describing it, saw him coming in, sitting down and touching Tammy's hand and him just looking across the thing at her. No life in his eyes. Hello. God knows if he called her, hello, my sweet. You know what I mean? And like just that vibe, and like Tammy almost like kind of folding into herself a little bit and shutting off just a little bit. The temperature changing, the vibe changing. You know how it goes. You know when you've been around this, especially if it's somebody else's spouse, where they come in and it's just like your best friend in the world can be this person, but once their spouse comes around, it's this different energy. And there's a different energy with people. So say like this, say you've been hanging out with Tammy all day long, right? And say you normally get along with Chad, the vibes there, and he's all cool and even around it, whatever. You know, and he comes in, but it's like, okay, well, I just got in from work. It's like, we've got to start our evening time. That, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you can kind of understand that. Chad seems like he just had this like boom, 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 boom energy that followed him around, you know, and there's just nothing there, nothing behind his eyes. And also too, one thing I was sitting here envisioning, and listen to me talking about envisioning like I'm one of these people following their crazy stuff. You know, I was imagining it is what I mean. Good Lord. But is him sitting there, like, say she could have said something basic and he would try and turn it into a little damn sermon. Like, well, I'm glad you offered that point of reference about your trip to the grocery store. Did I tell you one time in one of my 5th incarnations, when I was actually God himself, about my trip to the market and the little land that we lived in? You know what I mean? And you're just like already like, oh my God, I'm going to fall out. Just listen to it. I bet you like everything was like that with him. You know what I mean? Like everything was like going to be that level of turned upness. Like, seriously, we're going down this road again? And then imagine being married to it. Oh, God, let's listen to one last clip.
We have Tammy's phone records and correspondence, all her electronic data. Would it surprise you to learn that in the last year of her life, we don't have any communications between you and her of any kind?
I don't think I feel like that's not correct.
Okay. You feel it's not correct, or do you know that there was no communication between you and her the last year of her life?
We would message on Facebook and text. I don't think that's correct.
Okay. So it's Facebook is what you're telling me. That's how you communicated with her?
Messaging and yeah.
Okay.
Can't roll my damn eyes. Of course, Pryor's going to get up there and say that. So you were just listening to Pryor on the cross, you know, basically trying to say, well, you haven't talked to her in the last year. And you know the way he does it, like the last year of her life, like he's almost trying to guilt trip her, you know. And it's like, and I love that she said, I don't think that's correct. You know, because think about this. Think about people you talk to. Okay, I can think of like a couple of people, like people that I talk to that are hooked up on everything. I'll be sending them TikToks on this app. I'll be talking to them on Messenger on this. I'll be snapping them this over here. You know what I'm saying? Like multiple things, right? Like numerous things. It's not just text messaging like on a phone. In fact, in this day and age, like I rarely just text. Like there's usually another platform I'm talking to people on besides that. You know, so it's like I get Pryor's doing his job. He's trying to discredit it. He's trying to do this. He's trying to do that. 100% get it. I respect the game, right? But that being said, so let's just talk about this. So again, overall, my whole thing with this is, number one, the disrespect. We saw the text messages. He couldn't wait to get rid of Tammy. They both couldn't wait to get rid of their family members. They considered them dead weight, and they made them dead weight, right? They got rid of them one by one, and more would have come down the pipeline, as well as not just family members, but people that are associated with them. So I think that Chad, again, he was trying to contain his excitement at this, Tammy's, you know, her funeral, all the stuff that came after her passing. I think that he was ecstatic. I think that he was ready to go have his life with Lori, and it was like, bam, here we go. Now, again, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to advocate for like, or come up with ideas to help people in the way of like, well, if you're ever going to plan on taking somebody out. But again, imagine you're in this situation where you've gone to the realm of you're going to take somebody out. You know what I mean? You would think you would have two stories in your mind. One was going to be how you wanted it to go. You know, like, I'm going to do it this way. And then however it planned out. And then after you did it, like however it played out, I mean. After it played out, you sat there and were like, A, B, and C happened. This is my story to account for A, B, and C. I don't deviate from that. I don't change that. I'm not going to whatever. The only time I could see it possibly being like, okay, they're changing their story up is if cops pick the original story apart and you're having to be like, oh, wait, I didn't account for that. But to go with a family function, family friends and all that, people coming to say their last, respects and stuff, and to tell multiple stories about the way the thing went down with Tammy is insane to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane to me. I'm just like, what? Now, again, I'm not complaining because it helps to bring justice swiftly, but it just shows you to me, I'm like, it's the entitledness. I'm not going to get called. It's the excitedness about the new life that awaits on the other side of the victim's life, because they look at them, just like he said in the text messages, as an obstacle. And he got rid of his obstacle and he was ready to run off with the core lorry and start their saving the 144,000 and whatever they were gonna do. Good God! Now you let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. What did you think about the testimony with Tammy? And this is just a fraction of the stuff I put up here. I just wanted to kind of use it as representation to talk about some of these talking points here. So let me know what you think down there. Roscoe's finally stopped taking his bath, but he does ask that you drop some sofas off in the comment section so he and I have a place to sit and talk about this case and all the other cases we talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until he and I meander on down there, we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.